Hey everyone, welcome back. It's Sunday, February 23rd, 2025. And wow, do we have a lot to unpack today?
Yeah, it's a busy news day for sure.
We've got elections, health updates, possible archaeological finds, you name it.
Let's dive in.
Okay, so first up, Germany. They just wrapped up their snap election, and Friedrich Merz, leader of the Christian Democratic Union, snagged the win.
Came out on top with 28.6% of the vote.
Not quite the 30% some were predicting, though.
True, and that makes forming a coalition a bit trickier. It's not going to be a simple majority situation.
And to make things even more interesting, the AfD, the far-right alternative for Germany, came in second.
With a record 20.8%. That's definitely sending shockwaves through the political landscape.
It really speaks to the anxieties and frustrations simmering in certain segments of the German population.
And what's interesting is how much social media played a role this time around.
Yeah, the AfD, even the left party, they really leveraged platforms like TikTok to connect with younger voters.
They understood how to reach that demographic in a way that traditional parties maybe haven't quite grasped yet.
It's going to be fascinating to see how this all reshapes German politics, especially with Merz at the helm and these coalition talks ahead.
Absolutely. And you can't forget about the impact of those U.S. endorsements for the AfD.
Right. Elon Musk and Vice President J.D. Vance both openly backed the party. That's definitely a new variable in the equation.
Definitely adds another layer of complexity to an already intricate situation.
For sure. Okay, shifting gears now to a different kind of leadership. Pope Francis. He's still in critical condition, right?
And unfortunately, yes, he's at a Rome hospital battling pneumonia in both lungs.
That's got to be worrying for a lot of people.
Definitely. It's been 2 weeks now since he was admitted, but the good news is he hasn't had any more of those respiratory crises.
Okay, that's something at least.
He's getting oxygen therapy, he's had blood transfusions, and they're also treating him for some minor kidney problems.
And what's the word on his overall prognosis?
Still a bit unclear, unfortunately. The Vatican says he's alert, but the situation is still complex.
Well, we all wish him the best. It's a reminder of how important his leadership is, especially as the first Latin American and Jesuit pope.
His absence is definitely being felt, particularly with him having to miss the Angelus prayer and all.
Absolutely. All right, let's move on to the ongoing war in Ukraine. President Zelensky just made a pretty stunning statement.
He said he'd be willing to step down.
As president, yeah, in exchange for peace and NATO membership for Ukraine.
It's a bold move, especially with the 3rd anniversary of the Russian invasion coming up.
Seems like a direct response to Trump calling him a dictator without elections.
It does add a whole new dimension to the peace talks that are going on.
Right, especially since Zelensky is meeting with Western leaders to talk about post-war security for Ukraine, something, by the way, that the U.S. hasn't exactly been jumping to provide.
Lots of questions swirling around this. What would peace even look like under those conditions? What about the future of Ukraine's relationship with Russia? So much to consider.
Definitely a complicated situation with no easy answers.
Okay, on to something a little lighter. Archaeologists think they may have stumbled upon a second tomb for the Egyptian pharaoh Thutmose II.
Near Luxor. This is potentially a massive discovery.
Big if true, as they say.
The thinking is that his original tomb flooded just 6 years after he was buried, so his wife, Hatshepsut, had him moved to a second, more secret location.
Like something out of an Indiana Jones movie.
Right. And the archaeologist leading this whole thing, a Mr. Litherland, he believes this second tomb could be hidden under a huge man-made pile of limestone and other stuff.
Designed to look like a mountain.
Exactly. Talk about an elaborate hiding place.
If he's right, this could rewrite what we know about ancient Egypt. Artifacts, inscriptions, maybe even Thutmose II himself.
It's an exciting prospect, and it makes you wonder about Hatshepsut's motives. Was it purely practical because of the flooding, or was there something more strategic going on?
Maybe she wanted to solidify her own place in history.
It's a fascinating historical puzzle for sure. It is. Okay, let's turn our attention now to a public health crisis that's been making headlines. India just banned 2 very addictive opioid painkillers.
Tapentadol and carisoprodol.
And this comes after a BBC investigation revealed that these drugs were fueling a serious problem in West Africa.
They found a company, Aveo Pharmaceuticals, illegally exporting them to Ghana, Nigeria, and Côte d'Ivoire.
It's a sobering reminder of the ethical issues within the global pharmaceutical trade.
Absolutely. Thankfully, authorities raided Aveo's Mumbai factory and confiscated their entire stock.
Hopefully that'll disrupt the flow of those dangerous drugs. Okay, last but not least, we've got another news item out of India that's generating quite a bit of controversy. the Ken-Betwa River Link project.
It's a massive dam project.
And it's sparking protests because of the potential impact on indigenous communities and wildlife.
Yeah, the goal is to channel water from the Ken River to the Betwa River. The idea is to tackle drought issues in the region by providing irrigation and drinking water.
Sounds good in theory, but
But it's going to flood villages and submerge forest land that's part of the Pana Tiger Reserve.
that's a critical sanctuary that's helped to bring tiger populations back from the brink.
Exactly. And there's also the issue of compensation. The project's been criticized for not doing enough for the villagers who will be displaced.
Many of whom are from the Gond and Cole tribes, who already face so much marginalization. It's a tough situation all around.
A classic example of trying to balance development with environmental and social costs. Not an easy equation to solve.
No easy answers there, for sure. We'll have to keep an eye on how it all unfolds.
It's really striking, how all these stories we're talking about, they might seem separate at first glance, but they're all connected in a way.
I see what you mean, like pieces of a bigger puzzle.
Exactly. Whether it's globalization, technology changing so fast, or the political landscape shifting, it's all intertwined. It makes you think, where are we headed? What does it all mean in the grand scheme of things?
Right. Take the German election, for instance.
The AfD's success, yeah, and just how fractured the political scene is there.
It's like a reflection of what we're seeing all over the world, isn't it?
It is. This surge in populism, it's not just a German phenomenon.
It's fueled by those economic worries, anxieties about cultural change, and a lot of people just feeling disillusioned with the powers that be.
And it's not just in the political realm.
You're right. The opioid crisis, the Ken-Betwa project, they show how interconnected everything is.
Economics, social justice, the environment.
They're all tangled up together.
And you can't ignore those connections. Trying to solve problems in isolation, it just doesn't work.
We need a more holistic view, right? Like, how do we approach these things in a way that actually makes a lasting difference?
Absolutely. And one thing that keeps coming up through all these stories is the question of leadership.
I see that.
Zelensky willing to step down if it means peace, Pope Francis fighting his health battles, Merz facing those tricky coalition talks in Germany.
It's all about leadership during a time when the challenges are unlike anything we've seen before.
And it's not just about making tough choices. It's also about creating dialogue, bridging divides, giving people hope when things feel uncertain.
It's about finding ways to move forward together, even when the path ahead isn't clear.
Exactly. And sometimes I think looking back can help us figure out where we are now and where we might be going.
That's what makes that possible tomb discovery so fascinating.
Yeah.
Thutmose II, if they do find it.
It's a powerful reminder, isn't it? History isn't just dates and facts in a textbook. It's full of lessons and secrets waiting to be revealed.
And it makes you think about Hatshepsut's motivations, moving her husband's tomb. Was it purely practical or something more? It's a mystery.
A real historical whodunit. It speaks to that human need to understand the past, our origins, and to learn from those who came before.
And those lessons from the past, they can guide us as we deal with present challenges, like the opioid situation in West Africa.
Those addictive painkillers, India banned them, but it just shows how interconnected our world is. Decisions made in one place have consequences that ripple out across the globe.
What happens in one corner affects us all.
The actions of that pharmaceutical company, Aveo, they were deeply concerning. It shows how important ethics are, especially in a globalized world.
We need stricter regulations, better oversight, and that goes for so many industries, not just pharmaceuticals.
Absolutely. And it brings us back to that Ken-Betwa project in India, development versus the environment, those difficult trade-offs.
A perfect example of how progress often comes with a cost. Water for a drought-stricken region, but at what price? The impact on wildlife, on those indigenous communities, it's significant.
And it makes us ask, what are our priorities? Is economic development always worth sacrificing our natural world?
And what about the well-being of those who are already marginalized? It's not simple.
No, not at all. We need to think long-term about sustainable development, about finding ways to meet our needs without jeopardizing the future.
A balance between progress and preservation. It's a tightrope walk. And speaking of tricky situations, Zelensky's offer to step down.
It's a bold move, that's for sure. Peace for Ukraine, but also NATO membership. Will it work? Will it be seen as genuine?
Will Russia even consider it? So many unknowns. The geopolitical implications are huge.
It just underscores how crucial diplomacy is. Talking, finding common ground, peaceful solutions. It's the only way forward, especially when the stakes are so high.
War is never the answer. It comes at too high a price, always. But maybe, by learning from the past, like with that possible tomb discovery, we can find our way to a better future. A future where peace isn't just a dream.
A future built on justice, sustainability, and understanding. That's the goal, isn't it?
You know, it's amazing how all these stories we've been talking about, they all seem to come back to this theme of, well, transitions, right?
Yeah, I see that.
Germany's Leichen, Zelensky's offer, even searching for that ancient Egyptian tomb. It's like we're watching these systems, these power structures, all in a state of flux.
Absolutely. The world's in constant motion. It's easy to feel a little overwhelmed by it all, The pace of change is just so fast.
But it's also exciting in a way, right? Like there's opportunity there too.
Definitely. A chance to rethink how things work, to challenge old ideas, and to create something better. A future that's more just, more sustainable, more equitable for everyone.
It makes you think, what role do we each play in all of this?
Right.
It can feel kind of daunting, Like how do you even begin to tackle these huge global issues?
Well, I think it starts with individual actions, having these conversations, making informed choices, holding our leaders accountable.
And remembering that we're all connected, right? What we do, it has an impact. Even small changes can make a difference.
Absolutely. Whether it's pushing for policies that support sustainability, helping organizations that are fighting the opioid crisis, or just taking the time to learn about what's going on in the world, we all have a part to play.
And speaking of learning, that potential tomb discovery, Thutmose II, it reminds us that history is more than just something in a book.
It's alive, full of lessons we can learn from.
And then you have stories like the Ken Betwa Project, forcing us to think about those tough choices we face. Development, progress, but at what cost?
It's a good example of that. Stories have this power to connect us, to inspire us, and to challenge us. They help us make sense of the world.
So as we wrap things up today, I guess what I'm taking away from all of this is, well, we've covered a lot, right?
We have elections, health crises, ethical dilemmas, ancient tombs, wars. It's a lot to process.
But the world's a complicated place, isn't it?
It is, but it's also full of hope. And as we face all these challenges, it's important to remember we're not alone in this.
We have each other, we have those lessons from the past, and we have the power to create the future we want.
That's well said.
So to everyone listening, thank you for joining us today. We hope you found this insightful, maybe even a little inspiring. And until next time, stay curious, stay engaged, and keep exploring the world around you.